Thorndike's most famous contribution comes from his puzzle box experiments, which completely changed how psychologists understood learning. Let us first understand the setup. Thorndike placed a hungry cat inside a wooden box with slatted sides, so the cat could clearly see food placed outside. Inside the box was a simple escape mechanism. It could be pulling a string, pressing a lever, or stepping on a platform. Now observe the initial behavior. When the cat was placed inside for the first time, it did not understand the solution. The cat scratched the walls, pushed the bars, meowed loudly, and moved restlessly. This behavior was random and undirected. Eventually, by accident, the cat performed the correct action. The door opened, the cat escaped, and it reached the food. Importantly, this success did not come from understanding, but from chance. Thorndike repeated the experiment with the same cat many times. Gradually, something important happened. The time taken to escape decreased smoothly. Useless behaviors like scratching reduced, while the successful response occurred more quickly. This gradual improvement formed a smooth learning curve, not a sudden jump. There was no aha moment. Thorndike concluded that learning happens through trial and error, also called trial and accidental success. Responses that lead to success are strengthened, while ineffective responses disappear. This single insight laid the foundation for behaviorism. From the puzzle box experiments, Thorndike proposed 3 fundamental laws of learning. These laws explained how learning begins, how it strengthens, and when it occurs best. The 3 laws are law of effect, law of exercise, law of readiness. Among these, the law of effect is the most important and is frequently asked in examinations. We will now study each law carefully with examples you can directly write in answers. In the puzzle box experiment, the cat is placed inside a box, that is the situation. The cat accidentally pulls the string, that is the response. The door opens and the cat gets food, which is a satisfying effect. As a result, the connection between being in the box and pulling the string is strengthened. In later trials, the cat pulls the string more quickly. This clearly demonstrates the law of effect. Consider a student preparing for exams. The situation is the need to study. The response is using flashcards. The effect is scoring high marks, which is satisfying. Because the outcome is positive, the student is more likely to use flashcards again. The study method is stamped in due to its satisfying consequence. When a child wants something and asks politely, this situation is wanting the cookie. The response is polite asking. The effect is receiving the cookie, which is satisfying. As a result, polite behavior is strengthened. The child learns that polite requests work better than other behaviors. In contrast, when the same child throws a tantrum, the response is screaming and crying. The effect is not receiving the cookie and being punished. This is an annoying effect. As a result, the tantrum behavior is weakened and becomes less likely in the future. This shows how negative consequences reduce behavior. The law of exercise explains the role of practice in learning. According to Thorndike, stimulus-response connections become stronger or weaker depending on how often they are used. This law has 2 complementary parts, the law of use and the law of disuse. The law of use states that when a stimulus-response connection is used repeatedly, it becomes stronger. The more frequently a response is made to a particular stimulus, the more firmly that connection is established. Practice makes the response quicker, smoother, and more automatic. The law of disuse states that when a stimulus-response connection is not used for a long time, it gradually weakens and may even disappear. Skills that are not practiced become slow, inaccurate, or forgotten. Think
When
of this
learning
with a
to play
simple
a
metaphor.
musical instrument
Imagine
like
a
the
path
piano
through a forest.
early performance
If many
is
people
slow
walk the
and
path
awkward.
regularly,
With
it
daily
becomes
practice,
well-worn, clear,
movements
and
become
easy to
smoother
follow.
and more
The path is
automatic.
strengthened
If
through
practice
use.
stops for
If people
months,
stop
the
using
skill
the path,
deteriorates.
vegetation
This
grows
clearly
back and the
illustrates
path
the
becomes
law of
overgrown
use
and
and
eventually
disuse.
disappears.
Later,
It's weakened through
Thorndike
disuse.
revised the law of exercise.
Similarly,
He
stimulus-response
discovered that
connections
mere
are
repetition
strengthened
without
through
any
repeated use
satisfying
and
effect
weakened
does
through
not
lack
lead
of
to
use.
strong learning.
Think of this with a
Mindless
simple
repetition
metaphor.
is not enough.
Imagine a
Practice
path through a
strengthens
forest.
learning
If
only
only
when
people
it is
walk the
accompanied
path
by
regularly,
satisfying
it becomes
outcomes.
well-worn.
Therefore,
Clear,
the
and
law
easy
of
to follow.
effect remains
The path
more
is strengthened
fundamental.
through use.
This
If
revision
people
has
stop
important
using the path,
educational
vegetation
implications.
grows back,
Teachers
and the
should
path
not rely
becomes
on
overgrown
rote
and
repetition
eventually
alone.
disappears.
Practice
It's
must be
weakened
meaningful,
through disuse.
include feedback,
Similarly,
and
stimulus-response
satisfaction.
connections are
Modern
strengthened
learning
through
theory
repeated
confirms
use
that
and weakened
spaced,
through lack of
active
use.
and deliberate
Think of
practice
this
is
with a
more
simple
effective
metaphor.
than mass
Imagine
or
a
passive
path
repetition.
through a forest.
In
If many
summary,
people
the
walk
law
the
of
path
exercise
regularly,
states
it
that
becomes
learning
well-worn,
connections
clear,
strengthen
and
with
easy to
use
follow.
and
The
weaken
path
with
is
disuse.
strengthened through
However,
use.
practice
If people
alone does
stop
not
using the
guarantee
path,
learning.
vegetation
Practice
grows
must
back,
be
and the
meaningful
path becomes
and accompanied
overgrown
by
and eventually
satisfying
disappears.
effects.
It's
When
weakened
understood
through
along with the
disuse.
law of effect,
Similarly,
the law of
stimulus
exercise
response
provides
connections are
valuable
strengthened
guidance
through
for
repeated
effective
use
learning and
and
teaching.
weakened
The law of readiness explains when learning occurs effectively. According to Thorndike, learning happens best when the learner is prepared physically, mentally, and motivationally. When readiness is present, learning is satisfying. When readiness is absent or action is blocked, learning becomes frustrating. Thorndike described readiness using 3 simple ideas. If someone is prepared and allowed to do something, it feels good and helps them learn. If someone is prepared but stopped from doing something, they feel upset. If someone is not prepared but forced to do something, learning does not happen well and feels unpleasant. All 3 must be present for effective learning. For good learning to happen, 3 things are needed. First, the person should be physically and mentally ready, which is known as biological readiness. Second, they should have the right knowledge and be mentally prepared, which is psychological readiness. Third, they should be interested and want to learn. Thus, it is motivational readiness. When all 3 are present, learning becomes easier and better. A 6-year-old child is usually ready to learn how to read from biological, psychological, and motivational standpoints, while a 2-year-old is not. In the same way, a student who has mastered algebra and geometry is prepared to tackle calculus. Without the necessary prerequisites, pushing students into advanced mathematics can result in frustration and hinder effective learning. The law of readiness has significant implications for education. Teachers need to evaluate whether students are developmentally ready, have the necessary prerequisite knowledge, and are motivated to learn. Learning is most effective during teachable moments, when all aspects of readiness are in alignment. Forcing learning too early can damage students' confidence and attitudes. Let's step back and integrate Thorndike's 3 laws, because they work together as a comprehensive theory of learning. The law of effect tells us that consequences are crucial. Responses followed by satisfying effects are strengthened, those followed by annoying effects are weakened. This is the primary mechanism of learning. The law of exercise tells us that practice matters. Connections strengthen through repeated use and weaken through disuse. But this works best when exercise is combined with satisfying effects. Practice alone isn't magic. Meaningful practice with feedback produces learning. The law of readiness tells us that timing matters. Learning occurs efficiently when the organism is biologically, psychologically, and motivationally prepared. Forcing learning when readiness is absent produces frustration. These 3 laws work together in any learning situation. Let me illustrate with a simple example that shows all 3 laws operating simultaneously. Imagine teaching a dog to sit on command. First, readiness. The dog must be alert, not exhausted or distracted. The dog should be motivated, perhaps hungry and interested in treats. The dog must be physically capable of sitting. These readiness conditions make learning possible. Next, the dog performs a response, perhaps accidentally sitting while looking up at you. This triggers the law of effect, where you immediately give the dog a treat and praise. The treat is a satisfying effect. The connection between the situation, you standing there saying sit, and the response, sitting, is strengthened. But one trial isn't enough. This is where the law of exercise comes in. You repeat the training many times. Each time the dog sits and receives a treat, the connection is used and strengthened further. Through repeated practice with satisfying effects, sitting on command becomes increasingly reliable and automatic. Eventually, the dog sits immediately upon hearing the command.
all three laws have contributed. Readiness made learning possible, effect provided the mechanism of strengthening, and exercise consolidated the learning through repetition. This integration reveals Thorndike's core insight about learning. Learning is the automatic, mechanical formation of stimulus-response connections. It doesn't require understanding, reasoning, or consciousness. It happens through the operation of these simple, universal laws. Connections form when readiness is present, they're shaped by their effects, and they're strengthened through practice. This mechanistic view was revolutionary. It suggested that learning could be studied scientifically without reference to mental processes. You don't need to know what the cat is thinking in the puzzle box or what the dog understands about sitting. You just need to observe behavior and manipulate consequences and practice. This objective behavioral approach became the foundation of behaviorism. Thorndike's laws are not merely theoretical constructs, they have significant practical implications for classroom teaching. This foundational impact is a key reason why Thorndike is often regarded as the father of educational psychology. Below we examine how each law translates into everyday teaching practices. From the law of effect, we derive several important principles. First, provide immediate feedback. When a student gives a correct answer or demonstrates a skill, acknowledge it immediately. The satisfying effect needs to be closely connected in time to the response. Delayed feedback is less effective. The connection between response and effect weakens. Second, emphasize positive reinforcement over punishment. Remember Thorndike's later revision. Satisfying effects are more powerful at strengthening behavior than annoying effects are at weakening it. Praise what students do right rather than focusing primarily on what they do wrong. This doesn't mean ignoring errors, but it means emphasizing success. Third, make learning experiences satisfying. This might mean creating engaging activities, providing achievable challenges, fostering social interaction, or helping students experience the satisfaction of understanding. If learning is consistently frustrating or boring, annoying rather than satisfying, the desired connections won't form strongly. In practice, this looks like praising specific behaviors immediately, "Great job explaining your reasoning, Maria," rather than generic delayed praise. It means using reward systems like grades, stars, or points thoughtfully to make success satisfying. It means providing corrective feedback quickly so students can adjust. It means creating a positive classroom climate where effort and improvement are celebrated. From the law of exercise, we learn the importance of practice, but meaningful practice. Provide ample opportunities for students to practice skills, but ensure this practice includes feedback and produces satisfying effects, not mindless repetition. Distribute practice over time. This spacing effect, one of the most robust findings in learning science, shows that distributed practice produces better long-term retention than massed practice. Better to practice 30 minutes a day for 5 days than 150 minutes in one session. Use varied practice contexts. Practicing in different situations helps students generalize skills rather than learning them in a narrow, inflexible way. In practice, this looks like assigning regular homework that provides practice opportunities with feedback, conducting regular review sessions to prevent forgetting through disuse, using spaced repetition systems for vocabulary, formulas, or facts, ensuring practice isn't just repetition but includes feedback and opportunities for correction. From the law of readiness, we learn to carefully consider student preparedness. Before teaching new material, assess whether students have prerequisite knowledge. If foundations are shaky, fill those gaps first. Don't push ahead with advanced material when students aren't ready. It produces frustration. Teach developmentally appropriate content. Don't expect abstract reasoning from young children who think concretely. Don't teach advanced skills before foundational skills are mastered. Build motivation and interest. If students aren't motivationally ready, if they see no purpose or relevance, learning will be difficult. Connect material to students' interests and goals. Explain why content matters. Create and capitalize on teachable moments, those times when all forms of readiness align. Sometimes, an unexpected question or event creates perfect readiness for learning something. Effective teachers recognize and use these moments. In practice, this looks like giving pre-assessments before starting new units to identify gaps, using scaffolding, starting with simpler material and gradually increasing complexity, connecting abstract concepts to concrete, familiar examples, discussing how material relates to students' lives and goals, being flexible enough to adjust instruction when students aren't ready. Now we must address the limitations and criticisms of Thorndike's theory. While his contributions were enormous, his approach had significant blind spots. A balanced, critical evaluation is essential for your academic development. The first major criticism is that Thorndike's theory is overly mechanistic. It reduces learning to automatic, unconscious formation of stimulus-response connections. According to Thorndike, learning doesn't require understanding, insight, or reasoning, just consequences and repetition. But is this really how all learning works? Consider a problem you've suddenly solved, a moment of insight where the solution clicks into place. Thorndike's gradual trial and error model doesn't easily explain these aha moments. Wolfgang Kohler's research with chimpanzees famously demonstrated insight learning. A chimp trying to reach bananas hung high in a cage suddenly realized it could stack boxes to reach them. This wasn't gradual trial and error, it was sudden understanding. The Gestalt psychologists argued that learning often involves reorganizing perceptual or cognitive fields, not just mechanical connection formation. Second, Thorndike neglected cognitive processes. He treated the mind as a black box, unknowable and irrelevant. All that mattered was observable stimuli and responses. But can you really understand learning without considering what happens mentally between stimulus and response? Tolman's latent learning experiments, which we'll discuss in video 5, showed that rats learned even without reinforcement. They formed cognitive maps. They were processing information, not just forming mechanical connections. Bandura's observational learning demonstrated that people learn by watching others and thinking about what they observe, not just through direct trial and error. The cognitive revolution of the 1950s and 60s challenged Thorndike's approach by demonstrating that expectations, beliefs, strategies, and mental representations profoundly influence learning. Ignoring these processes creates an incomplete picture. Third, Thorndike's theory is based primarily on animal research, cats in puzzle boxes, chickens in mazes. Do findings from these simple control situations generalize to complex human learning? Humans acquire language, learn abstract mathematics, create art, develop moral reasoning. Are these complex achievements really just networks of stimulus-response connections? Many psychologists doubt it. Now, some learning principles do generalize across species. The basic law of effect, behavior shaped by consequences, applies to humans, rats, pigeons, and even insects. But humans also have unique cognitive capabilities that may require additional explanatory principles beyond stimulus-response associations. Fourth, Thorndike overemphasized trial and error learning. While some learning involves random attempts until finding what works, humans also learn through instruction, explanation, observation, and reasoning. A student learning calculus doesn't randomly try different methods until stumbling upon the right answer. The teacher explains principles, the student thinks through problems. Thorndike's model fits some situations but doesn't encompass all learning. Fifth, Thorndike depicts the learner as passive, shaped by environmental consequences like clay shaped by a sculptor. But modern perspectives, especially from Piaget and constructivism, emphasize that learners actively construct understanding. They don't just respond to stimuli, they interpret situations, make decisions, regulate their own learning, and create personal meaning. This active constructive aspect of learning isn't captured by mechanical stimulus response theory.
Finally, Thorndike's theory struggles to explain uniquely human capabilities, creative thinking, abstract reasoning, language acquisition, transfer of learning to novel situations. These complex phenomena don't easily reduce to simple SR connections. When you understand a mathematical principle and apply it to problems you've never seen before, something more than mechanical connections is operating.
Edward Lee Thorndike is known as the father of educational psychology and a pioneer of learning theory. He followed a functionalistic approach, focusing on how learning helps organisms adapt to their environment. Through his puzzle box experiments, Thorndike showed that learning occurs through trial and error, not insight. Learning is gradual and involves the formation of stimulus-response connections, a view known as connectionism. He proposed 3 laws of learning. The most important is the law of effect, which states that responses followed by satisfying consequences are strengthened, while those followed by annoying consequences are weakened. This law forms the basis of reinforcement and operant conditioning. The law of exercise emphasizes practice, connections strengthen with use and weaken with disuse, especially when practice leads to satisfaction. The law of readiness states that learning occurs best when the learner is biologically, psychologically, and motivationally prepared. Thorndike's work laid the foundation for behaviorism, influenced Watson, Skinner, and Hull, and shaped modern educational practices. However, his theory is criticized for being mechanistic and for ignoring cognitive processes. In the next video, we will study B.F. Skinner, who developed operant conditioning by expanding Thorndike's law of effect.